Hey guys, this is Jake with the American Dreamers, and today we are going to be making 2 charcuterie boards and 1 cutting board out of some marble that you see there, and then some hard maple from Nathan's forest. The gentleman there on the right is Nathan. He was a huge help in this project and could not have done it without him. Here you see that little chip on that corner. We need to get that cleaned up. And this was both Nathan and myself. It was our first time working with marble, cutting it, and it actually was surprisingly easy. It worked pretty well. And you'll even see later we used some sandpaper on it, so it came down pretty well. This tile saw for some reason wasn't cutting super square, so we kind of had to get a shim there free-handed. Shout out to Emmett for being the cameraman. Huge help. Appreciate that. So he's cutting what we refer to as the base plate, which will make sense when you see it in glue-ups. It's just the bottom portion of the charcuterie boards and the cutting board. And that board right there that you see is about 3/4 inch thick. We spent a long time running that through the planer and getting it down because we ended up taking that down to about 1/4 of an inch. And here you can kind of see that nice grain in that hard maple. Like I said, all this wood came straight from Nathan's forest. He milled it, he put it in his kiln, and we just milled it up here in the shop. Next, take it over to the joiner, get the sides nice and square. And then we'll head over to the table saw and we'll get this base plate cut to the dimensions that we want it. So right here we're just cutting off the parts that we don't want. So that big knot there, we're going to try to avoid that knot. So just cutting away that which we don't want to be in our boards. This is going to be the piece that goes with the cutting board. So same process for that, plane it, join it, or the table saw.
Cinematic is weird.
Do what?
Cinematic is weird because it keeps switching from forth to back.
There's a hole there. Okay. Otherwise, they've got rid of all pieces, so that's out of concern. Just a skosh more off, just to clean that up. Okay, yeah.
And that piece ended up being 5 inches wide by 13 inches long. I don't know why we settled on 13 inches, because the marble that we cut earlier was also 13 inches. But we just chose 13. So that's going to be the charcuterie board handles and top plate. Here we got both those planed, and we planed them to about the thickness of the marble. It wasn't completely the same thickness after glue ups, but it was pretty close. And this is also going to be 5 inches wide, but it's going to say on the screen, it's going to come up here, it's going to say 18 plus inches, just because it needs to stick out past the end of the 13 inches to make room for a handle. And those slabs of marble that we had earlier that we cut to 13 inches long, we went ahead, Nathan ripped those in half. So they are approximately 2 and 7/16 inch wide. It's very cold outside, so we're just trying to get everything warm and ready for the glue ups. And you can kind of see what I mean by the base plate. That's that board on the bottom, the wider board, and then the top one is the one Nathan cut in half. That was already split. That's the top plate and the handles. And of course we use Titebond 3 for these joints. Titebond 3 is probably one of the better wood glues I've used before. And here we see the handles. Did not get on camera, but I cut those out with the scroll saw. And you can also see the marble that has been glued up there, which we use the Titebond Quick and Thick adhesive. And here you see it's out of clamp. This is what it looks like before sanding. So we got a lot of sanding to do. Nice little slow-mo shot for you. We put some sacrificial boards on the end there just to prevent against tear out, but we didn't actually have any problems with that. And this little table sander really helped out a lot. It made things a lot easier than using the belt sander. And they were putting just rounding over the corners, making them nice and smooth. And then we decided we might use a spindle. That only lasts about 44 seconds. Because this thing was just, this little sandy thing was so much better. What you see there, as it says, is that hand-stitched rasp from France. Very nice set of hand tools there. And hand stitch is a lot better than the ones made by machines that you can buy for cheap at Harbor Freight. This works really well, and Nathan was great at it. He did a lot of work on that handle right there. Got it nice and shaped well. And as you might be able to tell, this was my first time using a tool like this. So it was kind of a struggle. Nathan started out by holding the board in place, leaving his fingers in a perilous position because I'm not the most expert sander. And then he came up with a pretty good idea here that you're going to see in a second. He just clamped the board behind it to hold it in place, as you see right there.
Now, all of a sudden, see it go
Just trying to push
backwards.
back, yeah.
Yeah.
After destroying some sanding belts, I gave it another go, destroyed a couple belts. I decided to see if Nathan wanted to take over. And he did very well with it. He has a lot of experience with the belt sander, refinishing some of his own floors. But as you see, we kept losing sanding belts. We lost a lot of belts that day. But Nathan, in his ingenuity, came up with a good plan to use them anyways, so that was nice. And here's the last bit of sanding that we did. After this, we actually took a block of 220 and sanded it down the edges to make it real nice. And here we're gluing up the cutting board. One thing I don't recommend with this cutting board that I wouldn't do again is I used cardboard to protect the wood from the clamps. I wouldn't recommend that. Most of the clamps were fine, but the clamps that you might be able to see, I'm about to put on here in a second, they're the Red C clamps that are going to go in the middle of the board. They actually left a mark, and I had to sand that out. And all the sanding for the cutting board was done off camera because nobody wants to see that. Really, everybody just wants to see this. So I'm going to stop talking and you all can enjoy the real nice colors of the wood.